Welcome to the Far Cry New Dawn Specialist MBTI Analysis video. And in our roster we have Bean, Grace, Nick Rye, Selene, and the lovable Sharky. A little disclaimer before, many of these characters do not have a lot of information on them, so we're going to have to make a rough analysis. However, their main functions are very prevalent, and they should be easy to pinpoint. And our first runner-up is Bean. And oh boy, he is a special character. It's clear to me that Bean isn't any dumb. He's always looking for new information. You could often see him at home base questioning everyone about random things. And one of the things he likes asking is, what's an orgasm?
What's an orgasm?
She helped orchestrate
What's an orgasm? What's an orgasm?
And it's kind of really funny. His second function seems to be FI. Everything he does and thinks about goes towards his Wikipedia.
Wikipedia?
But other than Wikipedia, he doesn't really express too much. It seems to be his only real interest. And because he seems to only identify with it, I'm going to have to really assume it's FI. Because FE would be more focused on helping others, but he's more focused on his Wikipedia, almost to a point of obsession, which leads to our tertiary function, which would be TE. Bean doesn't often show his TE function, but his Wikipedia platform is very effective. You do gain a lot of information from Wikipedia. There's a bunch of scouts everywhere, and they're providing information for you about hidden areas all around the world. So clearly, Bean has something going on for him.
It really rumples my stillskin to see the highwaymen wasting resources like that. Don't they know how much guns and trucks are worth nowadays?
And of course, Bean's inferior function seems to be SI. He seems to think about what his father has said a lot, and he mainly focuses on that to drive him for Wikipedia. Our second character, Grace Armstrong, is completely on the opposite spectrum of Bean. It's very clear that her first function is SI. In her past, she valued hard work, and she finds purpose through her hard work.
I gotta say, us working together has given me a sense of purpose.
She also makes a habit of mentioning the past a lot.
Whatever you do, just be careful around those people. Sure, they ain't causing us any problems, but that wasn't always the case.
And she has a very fine-tuned memory and is very good with small details. Grace's second function is TE. She needs to be effective at all times. It's almost to a point where she's a workaholic in order to find that purpose. Grace also seems to understand that people can change during certain situations. An example of that is when Grace mentions how a lot of the highwaymen used to be part of Hope County. They were citizens, but due to famine, they changed their way of life in order to adapt.
A lot of highwaymen used to be good, honest people. When you ain't got much and the twins come by, you don't got a whole lot of options. So you join them, because it beats starving to death.
Grace's tertiary function is FI. She doesn't often share her feelings unless she's asked to. She also rarely ever shows weakness. Even though she's blind, she still continues to be the weaponsmith, and I believe that's because she values hard work. Another indicator of FI is how Grace does things. She doesn't so much speak about her feelings, she does actions, and she expects you to understand her actions come from a place of love. Grace's inferior functions NE. Rarely does she really question things. However, in combat situations, Grace can be very creative. Another indicator of inferior NE is that Grace can't figure out puzzles. She can't read through people. She instead takes things by face value. And that all indicates that Grace is an ISTJ. Our third character running up is Nick Rye, and he has me pinned between two types. It's either he's ESFJ or ISFJ, but due to his actions, I'm going to assume he's an ISFJ. Nick's first function is SI, just like Grace, but it manifests in a different way. Nick is more concerned about his tradition and his family, instead of making an identity off working hard. He also named his daughter Carmina, which is the same exact name as his plane. Nick clearly is a very funny guy. His next function would be FE. Nick is like an open book. Anytime you approach him, he'll speak his feelings and his opinions on everything that you do. Another factor of Nick's FE usage is how giving he is. He works really hard, and he gives everything to his family and to society around him.
I mean, look how far this place has come. And it's all because of the people. Each and every one of us is good at something. It's really starting to show.
He doesn't really expect much self-recognition. He just wants to do things for the sake of doing things for others. Nick's third function. This is where I was struggling before with the ESFJ and ISFJ part, because Nick doesn't particularly show too much TI usage. He kind of neglects his third function. There are moments where he is able to make critical decisions, and he does think about it for a while, just like the time where he told Kim we should leave Hope County because Joseph's insane and murdering everyone. In this case, he was correct. Instead of rolling out and living through the chaos, he wanted to go somewhere else and start anew, to which he could just build over his business again. But of course, that wasn't the case in the end. Inferior function is clearly NE. He doesn't really read through things very well. Like Grace, he takes things at face value. Seems both him and Grace have very underdeveloped NE functions. Fourth character we'll be analyzing is Selene. The issue with Selene is she doesn't have much information on her. She only really speaks when you speak to her, and she seems to have a more feeling disposition. It might even be one of her first functions. So for her analysis, it's going to be more of a cold read of what I see. Disclaimer, you should never judge someone based off their clothing, because clothing is just an outside representation of what they want to look like. But I'm going to be a hypocrite, and I'm going to judge her exactly on that. It's very clear to me that Selene is very untidy. She most likely would be a perceiving type. She doesn't look like she really cares so much about her looks. She looks like she's more interested in looking unique, which could potentially tie in to an FI type of appearance, I suppose you can say. Another indicator is that Selene gets bothered when people try changing her. One of her patients tried changing her, so she incorrectly diagnosed him in order to get his silence.
Can't wait till the people here stop trying to change me. One of them tried to get me to stop self-medicating, but then I just correctly diagnosed his hypoglycemia and he left me alone.
Another factor about Selene is she's very much in the moment. She wants to feel all the sensations. She doesn't so much strive towards the future, but she enjoys collecting her herbs and just living day throughout day. And I believe her self-medication and diagnosis with these things would probably indicate an SE function. She wants to live in the moment. She wants to have fun.
Gotta chill out sometime.
She doesn't want to so much think about the effects later on. She'll figure out those as time leads to it. However, there is a contradiction within that, because she does seem to have some sort of endgame, which is simply be a doctor, help people. It's pretty self-explanatory. It doesn't really go beyond that. And I'm going to assume, because of all that, her final function has to be TE. She doesn't really act on it other than misdiagnosing a patient because he questioned her identity. And she didn't like that, so she did a very immoral thing. That would most likely make her an ISFP. Our final specialist is Sharky.
Charlemagne Victor Boshaw is the name, but that is a mouthful, so most people just call me Sharky.
And oh boy, Sharky's a riot. It's clear to me that his first function's SE. Sharky loves explosions. I mean, that's like the most SE thing you can get. This guy wants explosions, he wants loud sounds, he wants to have the beer, he wants to have the woman, he wants to have fun.
I don't think she knows shit when it comes to building the base. I mean, look around. Look at this place. Am I crazy? I mean, yeah, sure, it's kids safe, but what about something for the adults, huh? A little something for me, maybe. Can I just have one gimp chained to a stripper pole? I mean, I think that's a pretty reasonable request in this day and age.
Sharky really knows how to have a good time.
Hey, did you see that? That dummy walked right into Mommy's trap and got his guts blown out.
And now we're going to be going to his second function, which will be TI. Even though Sharky likes having all the fun and all the things, Sharky's actually really smart. He knows how to play people. When you first meet him in New Dawn, he tells you that he has this really cool drink and you should try it, even though he spiked the drink, and he wanted you secretly to defend his base for Herc's child. And guess what? It actually works.
Oh, yeah, I should have warned you. Yeah, the party liquor's just ethanol for car engines.
Another factor of his TI reflects on how much knowledge he has about certain mundane things. It's clear that Sharky enjoys learning things. And when Bean asks him about what an orgasm is, Sharky gives a very detailed answer.
Orgasm?
Holy smokes, Bean, did you ever come to the right guy? I've been practicing this talk, you know. Yeah, on account of my kiddo.
I'm all ears.
So, okay, an orgasm is like these pleasurable rhythmic muscle spasms at the end of the sexual response cycle. It's physical, endocrinological, and if you're doing it right, it's emotional too. Does that answer your question?
Gosh. I have more questions, Mr. Boshaw.
I can't do it right now, like right this second, but sometime soon we'll hang out, we'll kill some party liquor, and I'll tell you anything you want to know.
And that leads to our tertiary function, which would be Effie. Sharky is not entitled to take care of Herc's child, but he takes care of Herc's child as if it's his own. He also enjoys taking care of people around him. Once again, Bean is the example of asking about an orgasm. He answers his question and then says, hey, we should have a beer sometime and I'll answer all the questions. So it's very clear that Sharky is very considerate of others' emotions around him. However, because Effie is his tertiary function, he doesn't often need to show it, and he usually won't. He prefers just dabbling in his SE, playing around in his TI of testing things, versus being all mushy. And the inferior function, obviously, is NI. Sharky's too concerned with having fun. An example of this would be when he was taking care of Herc's kid. He was living in a radiation-filled pool because he thought it would be cool.
Welcome to Chateau Boshaw, the loudest, smelliest place in all of Oak County.
Sharky isn't exactly good at thinking about the future because he's so concerned about the present and having a good time. However, his NI isn't completely underdeveloped. He's able to foresee that the highwaymen will continue coming back to the radiation-filled pool, so why not go somewhere safer? And once that is all over, he decides on better methods of taking care of the kid because he wants the kid to become awesome.
You know, now that I think about it, this is a terrible place for a baby. Yeah, just terrible. All the sharp rusted metal and sulfur fumes. I don't really know what I was thinking.
And I'm pretty sure you could see why I like Sharky. Anyways, that was our last companion within the specialist list. If you enjoy what you see, please leave a like, leave a subscription, all that fun stuff. There will be more MBTI videos in the future. I'm going to try putting as much out as I can because there is a little editing to this. And my computer isn't the strongest computer in the universe, sadly. But anyways, once again, thank you. Have a nice night, day, evening, or whatever time period you're in.